Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to call this meeting, this March 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority Board to order. Councilor Davis is running a few minutes late. Otherwise, all members are present. I call this March 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority Board to order. All members are present. Other than Councilor Davis, who's running a couple of minutes late. We expect him to be here shortly. Item number 2, we have a moment of silence that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Benavides. Thank you very much, Trustee Benavides. Item number 3 is approval of our minutes. I make a motion to approve the February 8th, 2023 minutes. Is there a second? A second from Councilor Jones. Any discussion here? Seeing none, I ask that all in favor say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Item number 4, proclamations and awards. We have no items on number 4. Item number 5, public comment. Ms. Salas, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
I don't believe we have anybody. Excuse me, misspoke. We have Elaine Hubbard.
Okay. Just a reminder, Ms. Hubbard, you'll have 3 minutes to speak with a warning at 2.5 minutes. Ms. Hubbard, welcome back. You have the floor.
Good water administration. I try to make suggestions and ideas to help with that. Happy World Water Day. This year's theme is accelerating change to solve the water and sanitation crisis. And because water affects us all, we all have to join in the effort. My suggestions today and every month are in keeping with that theme. We cannot continue to live in silos. So that we're okay, but not everybody else. While the snowpack might look good today, who knows what the summer will look like. Because of the past due amounts under the compact, basically no storage is allowed of the Rio Grande right now. So fish, fauna, and farmers will once again rely heavily on the run of the river. Due to future warming temperatures, the surface water supply will be steadily decreasing. Surface water supply shortages induced by climate change will drive both agriculture and municipal industrial uses to rely more heavily on groundwater. While the ABCWA has groundwater resources to rely on should the river run dry, such uses have consequences. Perhaps pump now, pay later should be the motto. Pumping now not only reduces river flows at a time when they're already declining, and will continue to do so, it reduces the amount available to recycle because those flows have to be used to offset the depletions. For several years, regional consumption has exceeded the compact's apportionment, causing the current deficit. Even if consumption were to be reduced, this may not be enough any longer. Drier times will bring increased competition and demand for scarce water resources. Folks with senior water rights are certain to demand priority. So I've made some suggestions as far as ways to look at some of the issues in the objectives. I'll mention 2 right now. To reach 110 gallons per capita per day by 2037, going to have to cut out about 200 million gallons of water per year from our diet. That should be a target in the objectives, not just a listing of programs. Another, non-revenue water is at least 10% of the produced water. That's a lot of lost revenue. There could be an objective to reduce that every year with a specific target. The goals have not been changed since 2004. So using this opportunity to look at goals and objectives, there could be a working session either for this year or at least for the next fiscal year. There are two other efforts that I want to briefly mention. One is the basin study that is currently underway. It's a way to get out of the silo and work together. The other one is MERCOG is about to talk about One Water, which would be all water has value, and we need to work together toward one water. So those are two ideas for which additional information could be presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Appreciate your comments. That concludes our public comments section of the meeting. That takes us to item 6, announcements and communications. Our next scheduled meeting will be held on April 19th, 2023 at 5 p.m. in the Vincent Griego Council Chambers. And at this time, I wanted to ask the consent of the board here to move up item number 10, which is our presentations. We've got several presenters here in the chambers, and I wanted to give them some respect and move up their items so that we can hear from them right away, without objection. So that'll take us to item number 10, other business. And item A, OB 23-5, STEM in the Burke Career Pathway, focused exhibition for Albuquerque teens and families. We have Eamon Haruta, the Director of Project Management from Explora here.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, I am not Eamon Haruta, and he was scheduled to appear to present to you, but he is not here yet. So I would like to request that we maybe push this agenda item a little bit.
With no objection, that's fine. And that'll take us to item B, OB 23-6, our drought update and water conservation program overview from Mr. Kelly. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I am Mark Kelly, the Water Resources Division Manager, and today I'm going to give you our monthly drought update since we are continuing to be under a drought watch. Despite some additional rounds of rain and snow, there is still some lingering moderate drought throughout Bernalillo County, as well as parts of the county that are just abnormally dry. We have seen our groundwater pumping as a percentage of our goal is at 116%, and our GPCD is at a rolling annual average of 126 right now. In terms of where we've been in the last year, conditions have considerably improved. As you can see from the map, there is currently a lot less excessive drought and extreme drought, which are the dark red and the light red portions. And there are wide areas of Arizona and western New Mexico where there is no drought at all. In terms of our temperatures this winter so far, we have been pretty normal throughout the range. We've had some spiking a little bit high, but nothing record-setting. In terms of our precipitation to date, this is at the Sunport. We've received 0.7 inches. It's slightly below the normal amount for this time, which is shown in green, which is 0.9 inches. Things are looking up in terms of snowpack in our San Juan Chamo watersheds. We are at 136% of the mean, and those are where we get our surface water from. Here in the Middle Rio Grande, snowpack is at 126, and the Upper Rio Grande at 110%. So things are looking slightly above average in terms of our snowpack. When we look at the seasonal drought outlook for the next few months, large portions of eastern New Mexico and some of the Middle Rio Grande area do continue to have drought persisting. But like I said, there are parts of southern New Mexico that don't have any drought persisting. With that, I will answer any questions drought-related.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Appreciate your time.
All right. So I'd like to talk about our conservation program right now. So our conservation program is an integral part of our water resources management strategy, Water 2120. We have a conservation goal set by Water 2120 to get to 110 gallons per capita per day by 2037. And how we're going to get there is by using our conservation program. A little historical background, our conservation program and really the actions of our ratepayers have come a long way. In the 90s, we had a GPCD use of around 250. And last year we had a GPCD of 127. So we've almost cut that in half, despite, as you can see in the red line, of the number of accounts growing. Looking towards the future, we do have that goal of getting to 110 gallons per capita per day by 2037. And I think we are well on our way there. And I'll get into talking about how we plan on getting there. Most of our demand is from single-family residential users. We also have a bit of demand from commercial, multifamily, and a little bit of an institutional and not much industrial use. Our residents have done a great job of conserving. Our residential gallons per capita per day is around 85. And you know, if everybody, including all the industries and institutions, acted like our residents, we would be at our goal by now, but we really consider the whole GPCD of the system. We also track consumptive use and non-consumptive use. And consumptive use is water that doesn't get into the wastewater treatment plant and is not returned to the river. It's water that either sometimes goes into the ground or evaporates or is lost. In terms of the best classes for consumptive use, or we've got, you know, industrial is only consuming about 13% of the water that they use. They're returning about 87%. Towards commercial and residential, those things go towards more of a 50-50, 60-40 blend. And our institutional and things like parks and schools, they tend to have the highest consumptive use because of all that watering. We're looking to achieve our 110 GPCD goal using a three-part strategy. We've got education, incentives, and enforcement. And education is teaching our customers how to conserve. Our incentives are trying to get customers that wouldn't necessarily conserve to give them a push so that they do conserve, which usually comes in the form of monetary incentive. And then we've also got enforcement to make sure that our customers aren't wasting the water in a wasteful manner. In terms of our education, we have a lot of customer support. We have ways that our customers can call in and ask an expert for irrigation advice, how to set their timers. We talk to customers on the phone also about leaks, and we do audits. We've done audits for our really high users, but also for our low-income users, where we also offer retrofit kits in partnership with PNM. We have a great website that shows how to, has irrigation tips as well as xeriscape tips, and that's called 505 outside, and we've recently just published an irrigation guide to guide customers about how much to water and when. And we also are reaching out to the professionals in the landscaping sector with our Water Smart Academy, where they can come and get training that counts towards their accreditations, but also that we're pushing our Xeriscape and wise use of water for the industry as well. In terms of incentives, we have $1 million set aside to provide rebates every year, and those are divvied out in multiple ways. We have Xeriscape conversions where we'll pay customers $2 per square foot for the removal of turf grass. And that has worked really well. The trickiest part with that is that folks have to come to us before they remove the turf grass so we can verify it. And we also provide rebates for rain barrels so folks can harvest rain off of their rooftop and use that to water instead of potable water. And we offer high efficient nozzle rebates and smart controllers so that people can really make their irrigation system as efficient as it can be. We believe in the value of trees, and we offer tree baits for folks to buy new trees, but also to take care of the trees that they already have. So that can be used for things like mulch or professional tree care. And we also have a WaterSmart CPR, which is our customized performance rebate that works with high users to achieve 20% rebate on indoor and outdoor use and provides rebates based on where they were and after they do their improvements, their usage later. The third part of the Venn diagram is enforcement. We used to be very fees-based and hammer-based in terms of our enforcement program. And now we do warnings and consultations, free audits for those that get warnings, and then we proceed to violations and fees. These are for things like having water that runs into the street is what we get most of our warnings about. And so we're trying to get our customers to gently move towards not wasting water. So our conservation program is a bigger part of Water 2120. We have our drought management plan that is also part of the conservation program, but our conservation program is really how we're going to move towards getting to our 110 gallons per capita per day. We've got the drought plan that sets like guardrails on the side that if we get out of alignment with our conservation plan, we can enact the drought plan to bring our customers more in line and hopefully reduce use. So that's a brief talk about our conservation program, and I'd like to stand for any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Barbeau?
Hi, thank you for both presentations. In this one, one of those last few slides, you talked about the change from fines to now a few steps and then violations.
Yeah.
Have you seen, how long has that been? Do you know what the results of that has been? Like,
we've been doing that for several years, and you know, our amount of violations has gone down in that time, but in terms of our number of like customer contacts, those have really stayed really the same, but we've been able to address issues without going to monetary penalties for a lot of people.
and what is the violation when you move to the final step on the?
Yeah, that's.
What does a violation mean?
Well, that's whenever they can get additional charges added onto their bill, and it really depends on the magnitude of their meter size on how much those violations are for.
Thank you, that was all.
Mr. Riep?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, there's a urban myth, if you will, in the Valley area that I'd like for you to address just to make sure that those that are listening, including all of us here, that if you flood irrigate in the valley, or you water your trees or what have you, that somehow you're recharging the aquifer and thus helping the water situation in the valley. Is that true or false?
Well, I'd say, Mr. Rael and Mr. Chair, I'd say that, indirectly, that does occur. A lot of that ends up going into, the plants that actually use that water and into the air, either evaporating from the soil or the plants bringing it up and evaporating from the plants themselves. But, we like to do our aquifers recharge through our aquifer storage and recovery projects. And, I don't have a quantification of how great or how, or the magnitude of flood irrigation going into the aquifer. But, I think that we would like to see, that that all of our aquifer recharge being done, by the Water Authority and not customers taking it upon themselves to try and to bring up the aquifer levels.
Mr. Chairman, that just begs a follow-up. Just so you're basically saying that at least there is some truth to the idea that if you're flood irrigating in the valley, you may be contributing to some aquifer or some recharge process, maybe at a very surface level that may not go into the deep aquifer, but it's not, you're not really wasting water. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Well, I think, I wouldn't say that all flood irrigation is wasting water if it's done right and appropriately. But we're trying to get people to use water in the best, most wise way possible, so not to overuse water. But I don't think, like I said earlier, that we want customers to take it upon themselves to recharge the aquifer. And there's a new book being written by John Fleck over there about water use in the Middle Rio Grande, and I'm certainly not the expert on how much is getting into the aquifer from there.
I believe Trustee Benavides had a question.
Yes, I'm thinking about the incentive program and how it applies to a yard with a large water-thirsty tree surrounded by a lawn. And, the water-thirsty tree has probably been there for a long time. Perhaps it's a cottonwood. And is there much savings to be gained by ripping out your lawn and then putting native plants, low water use type shrubs and things like that?
Oh, yes. Trustee Benavides and Mr. Chair, there are a lot of savings that can be found by replacing turf grass with desert-friendly landscapes. And that's one of the requirements that we have as well is we don't give the rebate unless the landscape is replaced with desert-friendly landscape. So we won't give a rebate for folks that have ripped out and just put a bunch of rock down. But we're looking to create desert-friendly landscapes. But we have found that sometimes people don't take into account that watering that was done through the grass to their trees. And when we do talk to people about our Xeriscape conversion program, we do remind them that you're going to have to set up either watering your tree by hand. The way I like to water my trees at home is from my rain barrels, or some other way of making sure that your tree gets that nice deep watering, or setting up some kind of drip irrigation for your trees.
And I realize the trees require a deep watering, whereas the lawn does not.
Yeah.
And perhaps the native shrubs do not as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking of the quantity of water that you need to pour on your trees is just overwhelms what you would put on your lawn. Am I wrong about that?
Trustee Benavides and Mr. Chair, I do think you are wrong about that, where trees do need a big gulp, but they need less less often. So we found that, compared to a lawn that has to be watered, hopefully no more than 3 times a week during our water by the numbers in the middle of the summer, that, those once monthly watering of trees is less water, we found.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? I did have one quick question for you.
Yes.
In my neighborhood, I've actually seen some electronic devices going in on fire hydrants, they look like meters or something like that. Is that part of a leak detection program or something like that?
Mr. Chair, I believe that is part of our leak detection program, where those are actually like listening to the water pipes and listening for water that is going out, and they can then address those leaks later.
So that's really looking for like a non-revenue water loss?
Yeah,
Pipes and
exactly.
meters and stuff.
Exactly.
Great. Seeing no further questions from the board up here, thank you for your report and thank you for your time here.
Thank you.
That takes us to item C. This is project updates on the Kirtland Air Force Base bulk fuels facility. We have 4 separate presenters on this individual item, so we'll go ahead and get started with our first presenter, which is going to be Colonel Jason Vadioni, from the commander of Kirtland Air Force Base, along with Mr. Ryan Wertman, a physical scientist from the Kirtland Installation Support Section. Welcome, Colonel.
Thank you. Good evening. Honorable Chair and members of the board, and to all present tonight. I am Colonel Jason Vadioni, as you mentioned, the Installation Commander for Kirtland Air Force Base, and thank you very much for having us here tonight and allowing us the opportunity to present. The Air Force, in conjunction with the New Mexico Environment Department, made tremendous progress on the bulk fuels facility project between 2014 through 2019 and continues through today. We installed 4 extraction wells and have successfully treated more than 1.5 billion gallons of water. We received an approved risk assessment for groundwater and soil from the New Mexico Environment Department, which states, due to the responsive actions already taken by the Air Force, there is no danger to the drinking water of the city of Albuquerque. In addition to groundwater treatment, we have treated all impacted soil in the source area to a depth of 20 feet. These activities are huge undertakings and are successes we all can celebrate on our road to a final cleanup of the bulk fuels facility. The tremendous progresses we have made since 2014 is due to the effective working relationship the Air Force has had with both regulators and community stakeholders. Through technical meetings with the Water Utility Authority, the New Mexico Environment Department, and renowned experts in the field, we developed work plans for the construction of our state-of-the-art water treatment system and implemented the robust sampling methods currently employed at the site. Unfortunately, we are encountering a shift from the collaborative environment that has facilitated the superb progress of the site thus far. Recently, there seems to be concern questioning the great work done together by our collective agencies and partners. We should strive to prevent any undoing of the progress made. The Air Force will continue to work with the New Mexico Environment Department to transparently address concerns and engage in collaborative decision-making to complete our task of building a reliable and comprehensive path forward. Most importantly, the Air Force is committed to ensure the water supply continues to be protected. We will not waver from that primary mission. We will continue to partner with the New Mexico Environment Department to obtain approval, to close the investigation phase and begin evaluating final remedies within the corrective measure evaluation process. That said, tonight I am here with our subject matter expert, Mr. Ryan Wertman, to address concerns and present the current project status. Again, The Air Force is ready to advance the cleanup process and to continue working with our New Mexico partners and neighbors. Thank you again for your time, consideration, and for allowing us to share with you this evening. Mr. Wortman will now take the podium. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. And again, thank you to the board for allowing us to speak on this subject. And we're really looking forward to give you a status, in-depth update on the bulk fuels facility cleanup project and where we are currently. This is my first time speaking in front of the board, so just a little background on myself. I grew up in Albuquerque and got a degree in geology from UNM, and through growing up here and just living here in general, you understand the valuable resource we have as our groundwater, and that kind of drove me towards getting a degree in geology and pursuing a career in this environmental field. And working with the Air Force since 2020, I've really understood their commitment to ensuring the protection of the aquifer from this release, as well as the continuously progressing this project forward to that ultimate goal of site cleanup. My experience on this project specifically is I've been working on this project since 2015 in some capacity or another. Some things to note, I've worked on co-authoring the risk assessment, the facility investigation report, phase 1, as well as helping to install several of those extraction wells that were mentioned, as well as getting the treatment system up and running. So topics that I want to cover tonight include the pump and treat interim measure, our plume, contaminant plume, as well as some of our monitoring plans, our process that we go through as far as the cleanup process from beginning to end and where we are currently. We'll be talking about our source area, our site activity timeline, as well as a risk assessment overview. So this is a very critical image that we show at all our open houses and all our public meetings because it shows where this ethylene dibromide dissolved phase contaminant plume was in 2015 and where it is in our most recent site, from our most recent site data. So what we're seeing here is a change in the plume geometry, and this is due to those 4 extraction wells and that 1.6 billion gallons that were removed. We've been able to reduce and control that northern portion of the plume, and this is done under the intra-measure provision of our permit that NMED administers over us. And what this provision does is it allows us to remediate, to reduce exposure pathways and reduce risk and eliminate risk to exposures. And for this would be exposure to drinking water users through the drinking water supply wells, but by these extraction wells controlling the migration of this contaminant plume, we are eliminating that risk. So this is a very important image. And just a little bit of background about dissolved phase plumes and how this came to be is there was leaking infrastructure associated with this small black and white checkered box here is where the leak occurred. This was a small release that occurred every time fuel was transferred, but this small release occurred every time fuel was transferred for decades at a time, resulting in a large amount of fuel being released that was then traveled through the earth until it came in contact with the groundwater. And when fuel comes in contact with groundwater, contaminants will dissolve out of that fuel and into the groundwater and travel with the groundwater. So what we're looking at here is ethylene dibromide that is within the groundwater. And this is our main risk driver at the site because this migrated far away from where the fuel contacted the groundwater, much further away than any other constituent that we also monitor at the site. So just going back to highlighting the success of our treatment system, these are some other data points that just validate that success. Right here, we're looking at the orange line is our estimated mass of that yellow shape, the plume, the EDB plume in that northern area and how it's reduced over time. And then the blue line that we're looking here, it shows the mass removed from our treatment system building. So this is when we get water to the treatment system and we're calculating the mass from that water going into the system. And that inverse correlation there, that's really what you want to see to show that you're measuring what you're removing out in the field along with what you're measuring at your treatment system building. So seeing that correlation is really great to see. We expect that to continue to flatline and maintain this kind of shape as we move forward into the future as well. Additionally, some things to note on here is this shows when all the extraction wells came online. They didn't all come online at the same time. They were done over that period of 2014 to that 2015 time period. In each of these extraction wells, you can see some of the greatest decreases in our estimated mass from our monitoring wells is associated when those extraction wells came online. Another interesting thing to note on here too is we show when we change sampling methods to this passive sampling technique, and we can see that the estimations before and after this transition are relatively consistent, which is what you would want to see from a representative sampling technique, which we'll talk a little bit more on a later slide. So the yellow shape that we talked about, that ethylene dibromide plume, I want to take a couple minutes here to really deep dive on how that illustration is developed, because that's really telling us where this contamination is and how our treatment system is impacting it. So what we're seeing here, it's a very complicated image, and I apologize for it because this is straight from our periodic monitoring reports, which we submit to the state. Every 6 months, we redevelop this same image based off of the most recent data. So what we're seeing here on the circles is all of our monitoring wells. There's 167 of them that are monitored on a semi-annual basis to create this illustration, as well as we're seeing that the different colors illustrate the different depths that those wells are at. Each of these wells is tagged with the specific concentration that well came from. And everything with the yellow shape is drawn around all the wells that are above the maximum contaminant limit for ethylene dibromide, which is 0.05 micrograms per liter. And for context of what that means, that's an analogy that we use is if you put a drop of ethylene dibromide in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, that's around what that 0.05 micrograms per liter is. So it's a very small amount that we're talking about, but this is a very important number because this is the Environmental Protection Agency's maximum contaminant limit, EPA MCL. And what that is it's a federally derived standard that is enforced across the nation as a drinking water standard. And what they're saying is anything at that concentration or above, if a human drank that water directly, there's a chance for an adverse health side effect from that water. But anything below that concentration is deemed safe to drink per the EPA. And we'll see in a later presentation of drawing this contaminant plume to lower concentrations than the MCL. And we have a lot of concern with that because that's basically showing water that's deemed safe to drink by the EPA as a contaminant plume, which we want to make our decisions based off of where the risk is at the site and gear our strategies towards where this contaminant plume is at the MCL level or above. So another update for the site is our revised monitoring work plans. We've recently received correspondence from the state requesting revised work plans for both groundwater monitoring and soil vapor monitoring. In response to that, we've requested a meeting as of March 1st with NMED to discuss these work plan revisions in detail. And our main concern and reason for this meeting is because of the determination they made about the methodologies currently employed at the site. The states determined that 8 years of groundwater data, or 8 years of soil vapor data and 5 years of groundwater data is not representative of site conditions. This is very concerning to us because of the reason behind that. The main reason behind that is just how these methodologies were developed. These were done at collaborative technical working group meetings where we brought in technical experts across the nation as well as subject matter experts from the Water Authority, the city, the county, NMED, and the Air Force. And between 2014 and 2019, we had multiple technical working groups on these subjects to look at industry standards as well as, site-specific conditions. And we looked at all those and came up with these methodologies and then agreed upon them at these meetings and then documented them subsequently in work plans. And then those were approved by NMED eventually. And all of our work has to be done in accordance with NMED approved work plans per our permit that we're regulated over. So we really want to get an understanding of why this decision has been made and have that collaborative discussion with the state because we've seen success with that in the past. As well as when we revise these work plans, we want to ensure that it's going to develop usable data throughout the entire RCRA corrective action process, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So the RCRA corrective action process, this is the RCRA permit, which is what we're regulated under. That stands for the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act permit. This is how NMED administers our cleanup process. This is the flow chart of the entire process. I want to focus in on where we are now and what our next step is on this slide. So right now we're in the kind of middle box here, the RCRA facility investigation phase. The intent of that phase is to collect data to describe the entire nature and extent of contamination. And once we've described that, we then document that in a report. We've done that in the RFI Phase 1 report, which was partially approved by the state. There was 2 data gaps identified within that report that we have then subsequently written work plans that were approved by the state to go out and address those in the intent to close out the investigation phase. Those reports were submitted in 2021, and we're waiting for NMED's response on those to figure out what actionable objectives we have to close out the investigation phase. We've recently heard about an LNAPL migration pathway work plan requirement from the state, and that is, another data gap investigation is what that would trigger. However, we need responses from these 2021 reports in order to figure out what objectives are needed to be met by this additional work plan requirement. And then the next phase here is the corrective measures evaluation. Our goal is to close out the investigation phase and get to that corrective measures evaluation CME, because this is one of the most critical steps in the cleanup process. This is where we talked about that interim measure that's dealing with the migration of the contaminants. This corrective measures evaluation will then look at all remaining contamination above cleanup standards, and the Air Force will present strategies on how to remediate that to the state. They will then select the most protective and feasible strategy, and will present that to the public for a public comment period, and a hearing can be held on those strategies. And this is where the public's actually involved in the cleanup process, and it's a very important step that we're looking forward to get to. And the Air Force's position is that we have enough data to move there. However, this has to be done on NMED's direction, so we look forward on working with them and figuring out how to close out that investigation phase and start looking at remedial solutions for all the remaining contamination at the site. And another thing to highlight, this is the source area here. I just want to spend a second on this slide because this is showing where we have other contaminants out there besides EDB, although that was the main risk driver and what triggered the interim measure, but we have other contaminants out there. This plume we're seeing from 2016 and 2022, there hasn't been much change to this plume due to the relatively flat groundwater gradient in this area and the natural characterizations of the chemical and natural processes that prevent this from migrating towards drinking water supply wells. We monitor and remap this image every 6 months to ensure it's not moving. And if it did end up moving at some point in the future, you can see on this image we do have our extraction well, and these contaminants would be treated by our current treatment system. So if it did end up migrating, it would be captured by our extraction wells, and that's something we're looking at constantly. But right now there's no risk associated with this because it's not impacting drinking water supply wells and it's not moving towards drinking water supply wells. So site activity timeline, there's been a lot of information already discussed, and there's a lot of information on this slide because a lot of work has been done to date on this project. I just want to highlight a few things. The approved risk assessment, which we'll talk about on the next slide, partially approved risk assessment, as well as those data gap investigations. We installed new wells. We did coring to address the data gaps from the RFI Phase 1 report, and those were submitted in 2021, those reports. The interim measures done to date, like Colonel Vadielny said, we remediated soil down to 20 feet, as well as we've operated soil vapor extraction systems, as well as technologies used to remove free-phase fluid from above the groundwater. These technologies removed about 3/4 of a million equivalent gallons of fuel from the source area to remove that continuous source of contamination. And then, of course, the groundwater treatment system, the most important interim measure, which is preventing the migration of contaminants towards drinking water supply wells. And a risk assessment overview. So in 2017, NMED requested the Air Force to develop a risk assessment to follow a very prescribed process that quantifies risk in a very prescribed manner. That task was performed in 2017 by the Air Force. NMED then approved it, and the conclusions were no risk to soil, because like we said, that was removed to 20 feet, and that groundwater is not currently impacting drinking water supply wells, and that with the current operation of the interim measure and land use controls in place, that it will prevent future exposure. Again, every 6 months, we reevaluate this position by redrawing those plume illustrations and doing performance assessment of our pump and treat system. So we continuously re-verify these conclusions in that manner to make sure that we're eliminating that exposure pathway. There will have to be an update to this risk assessment as we move further along the process, but I just wanted to highlight how important that is. And just the overall, for the conclusions here, our overall position is we're going to continue to operate the treatment system, continue to monitor the networks to verify that there is no impact to drinking water supply wells, as we're going to continue to engage NMED to move us along that RCRA corrective action process until we get to that CME phase where we can further evaluate remedial strategies for the bigger picture and the remaining contamination at the site. So with that, I know that's a lot of information, and I apologize, but there's a lot to go over on this project, and if you guys want a more detailed on any of these subjects in the future, we're more than happy to come back. We'd also offer up a tour of our treatment system on base. If any of you would like to participate in that, or you have any constituents that'd be interested, our contact information is here. So yeah, with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wortman and Colonel, for being here. Councilor Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Wortman, and thank you for being here. I'm catching up a little bit. I took a year off from the Water Authority Board, and I think I feel like I stepped right back into where I left off a year ago. And thank you all for working on this. My question is, I think when I left the board maybe a year ago, and so I'm catching up to all of our data points here, the Air Force was working on a groundwater remediation or a testing plan, and some of the community groups had raised, and the Water Authority had raised some concerns about the one the Air Force was submitting. I see now that NMED denied that, and that you guys are going back to the table to work through it. What was the challenge in that entire year that got us to the submitting the application that NMED ultimately denied? Like, what was deficient there that they didn't get addressed in that whole year?
Are you talking about the work plans?
I'm sorry, yes.
So for the monitoring work plan, so that was, we've been working on developing a new work plans, but we really need to figure out the status of those old work plans that we're currently operating under, because per our permit, we can't monitor outside an approved work plan. So we really need to understand that status before we can deliver another revised work plan, and that's part of our engagement with the state right now, is to figure out how we can use the data generated to date and the status of those current work plans.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Wortman, and Colonel, thank you for being here, and thank you, as always, we appreciate when you all make time to come see us, because it is important for all of our community, and Commissioner Barbeau and I represent those neighborhoods there, and it's been exciting to see some progress for some time, and I think we sort of hit a roadblock there, and so I'm glad that you guys are back on it again. But again, I think it's disappointing to feel like we kind of lost a couple of years there trying to figure out what the plan was going to be, and then to have the plan ultimately denied by NMED because it didn't meet those standards. And so I hope that this next round, hopefully with the technical advisory groups and others that can help participate, and you can get the data you need to do that. I'm encouraged that maybe there's a better path forward, but it does feel disappointing that there was a lot of time and money wasted, and there's concerns that remained. And we talked about how the water table was rising back then, and we weren't sure what data we were going to get from some of those submerged data points, as I recall. But I appreciate that. Do you know, Mr. Wortman, just if by chance, what do you think a timeline looks like? What is your perception of getting that data back that you need in order to submit a revised plan that you think would meet the problems in the identified by NMED?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's difficult to give a specific timeline because of the nature of this RCRA process. We submit documents that have to have been approved by NMED, so it's two agencies on separate timelines, and we have to be lockstep to move forward. And if there's any, like you said, deficiencies in the reports we submit identified by the state, that's going to cause delays. So I can't give specific timelines, but from our position, we have enough data to start closing out that investigation phase and looking at those remedial solutions in that CME phase. And that's really where we could give a more actionable timeline once we start sharing those strategies with the public and NMED selected the most protective strategy that we present to them. And that's when I could give, more specific timelines. But at this point, it's going to just be working and getting approvals through the state. And again, I'm encouraging collaborative discussions with the state, because if we can get things approved the first time around, of course, that's going to significantly accelerate the timeline. So that's our main goal, getting things in front of the state that can be acceptable and give us clear, actionable objectives to close out that investigation phase.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Workman, if I could, one more just to finish there, thank you. My concern would be, and I'm not the technical expert here, so you can dissuade me from this. My concern would be that if we do figure out what the data to fill those gaps and to address those deficiencies, and thanks, that's the word I was looking for, address those deficiencies, my concern would be that if it shows some variance from the models, that there's more time now to go back and revisit and restudy. At least that's been my experience. And so I feel like we're a little behind. I'm grateful that to hear that you all are working on a new collaborative process with the community members and see the value of sitting down at the table. And I'm grateful to have you all here. I'm glad that y'all are focusing on it. I'm worried about where that might take us, but certainly hope that you can keep us updated on the status of getting that data and anything we can do to help move that along. I know our staff is anxious to do that as well. I'm grateful to see them here. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I'm glad to hear things are sort of working forward through those gaps. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Counselor. Commissioner Barbeau?
Thank you, and thank you, Chair and Counselor Davis. Thanks for the presentation. It's great to get an update. Also, when I first came, this is my first time serving on the Water Board, but when I first came on to commission, I did get a tour. Was happy to see, but I have not heard much. Tried to attend some of the public hearings that have happened, but I guess it does. I'm thankful for the presentation and all the information. I think maybe I need to re-catch up, but when I hear you talking about final cleanup and final remedies, that feels like you're on a pathway to closure, which sounds hopeful on your end. But I worry that we both haven't got the data, and there's concerns with New Mexico Environmental Department that I guess I would like to see the plan for how we make sure remedies are occurring before we're planning for our final recommendations.
Agreed. Yeah, I could speak to that. So in that corrective measures evaluation, there is a public comment period to where, that's a very interactive phase of this process to where the public can weigh in on those selections. But I would say those data gaps that NMED identifies are important to address. I 100% agree. We just need to flush out what those specific data points are and what is needed to close out that investigation phase. And again, this is all going to be done under NMED approval. But as an assurance during this, we're committed to continuously operating that treatment system and monitoring the groundwater data to make sure there's no unanticipated migration that could potentially impact drinking water users. So that's the commitment while we iron out these more detailed scientific models and those kind of things moving through the process.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess I did a question about funding. I know when I live in the neighborhood, so does Counselor Davis, adjacent to the Air Force Base. And I know I've heard a lot across time about funding. What kind of funding is committed to clean up in this?
Yeah, so to date, $130 million has already been spent on this project to get to where we are today. And there's been no issue since me joining the Air Force in 2020 in securing any amount of funding. It's just we need to come up with that clear, actionable work plan so I can put that funding into contracts and get it executed into the field. That's one of my main responsibilities. But as far as securing funding from the Pentagon down, it has not been an issue on this project. They understand the importance and due to the proximity to drinking water users of this contamination. So,
okay, thank you. And I maybe would like to talk about funding over the past few years, what that's looked like and what maybe you're budgeting for. It sounds like after you get some plans.
Yeah. If you want to see specific numbers, we can go into that a little bit more. I don't have those on hand, obviously, but it's a good follow-up question.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Trustee Benavides.
Yes, great presentation. So when I look at the maps of the plume that show where the contaminants are, those are two-dimensional maps. So I'm assuming that is where the contaminants are in the groundwater, right? and you know that through measurements from wells, I assume. So that's a good indication of lateral migration. So I'm wondering about vertical migration. Are there instances where there's a plume above the groundwater that has yet to make it to the groundwater?
Yeah, so that's a great question, something I didn't go into. And what the image I was showing was the dissolve phase contamination. So that's the actual impacted groundwater. And we show the uppermost layer because that's the most impacted by the fuel. But there's other residual contamination in the vadose zone as well. So that's where fuel's still being absorbed into soil. That's going to have to be addressed in that CME evaluation. So there's other contaminants. We were just looking at the dissolved phase plume. So if you'd like, we can go into some of those other details in a follow-on presentation, but there's other work to be done than just the impacted groundwater out there.
Do we have a very good idea of where those contaminants were introduced into the soil?
Yes, it's associated with that leaking offloading rack that would leak every time fuel was transferred from train cart into the bulk fuel storage area. And this occurred over a decade period of time. It was identified in 1999 when it finally started daylighting to the surface. That infrastructure was then removed immediately. And currently we have all above ground piping in that area with leak detection systems in place to ensure there's no continuous fuel source to this area.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions from board members? I suspect we may have others as we move through some of these other subsequent presentations that may bring us back to some of your points. So thank you, Mr. Wortman. Appreciate it. So this takes us to item number 2. We have an update from NMED. We have Mr. Rick Sheen, the Resource Protection Division Manager. Welcome, Mr. Sheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Rick Sheen. I'm the Resource Protection Division Director at the New Mexico Environment Department. And I would like to thank you on behalf of Secretary Kenney for inviting us and allowing us to give you our perspectives on what the current status is at the bulk fuels facility site. I'd like to also note, too, I've just been in my new position for about maybe a month or so. I was Hazardous Waste Bureau Chief prior for just about a little over a year. But I've been around this site since a young professional. I started working Water Utility Authority as their water quality hydrologist. So I'm very familiar with the site, and I have some more historical perspectives to share in my presentation. But first, just to find our role in the interactions that we have with the Air Force. Our Hazardous Waste Bureau actually enforces the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act federal laws, that we've been given delegation authority by the EPA in order to do that. This has been for a long time now. We also enforce the New Mexico Waste Act, and we implement this through the regulations that we have. One of the instruments that we have for several facilities is a permit. And that is something that both the permittee is Kirtland-based at this point and the state sign. Within that permit, there is a section on corrective measures, corrective action. I may use those interchangeably, so I apologize. They may sound the same. I mean the same thing. The bulk fuels facility falls under this corrective action that we're going on right now. So as a part of the permit, there are several designated called solid waste management units. Fun acronyms say is SHMU. So there are several, and there were 2 SHMUs associated with this leak. So we enforced it on the SHMUs associated with this. I will note, before I get to this slide, that the history of the site in 1999, when the Air Force reported it to the New Mexico Environment Department, at that time they requested that it be regulated by the Groundwater Quality Bureau under the Water Quality Act. NMED did do that for 10 years, and up until about 2010, NMED was not satisfied with the progress on the site and moved it back under the Hazardous Waste Bureau to be enforced through their permit again. About 3 or 4, 5 years, sort of the biggest action that was taken during that time, Hazardous Waste instructed Kirtland Air Force Base to put in several monitoring wells. Golly, it was a huge drilling campaign, and for those who lived in the area and endured it, You know, it's been, you think that we could not fully appreciate what happened during that time and what the neighborhood was put through. But between the years of 2011 to most of 2014, the Air Force and the Kirtland leadership, and when I speak of Kirtland leadership, I do not speaking of reflected now as who in the seat and the commander of the base. But I will say at that time, there was fierce resistance to the idea of a pump and treat system. And it took this board, Mr. Sanchez, reaching out and finally using some political capital to get in the face of the congressional delegation from New Mexico to get the Air Force to the table to start that collaborative process. And during 2014 up to 2019, I would say the big success out of that, and that they, as the Air Force pointed out today, was the reduction of that contaminant groundwater plume mass that was at that time headed toward one of the Ridgecrest wells. We didn't know really. Modeling told us one way, could go another. We looked at the range of options. So the importance of the collaboration at that point was to take care of the problem that we didn't know anything at that time. It seemed like an emergency at the time. We didn't know how far, we didn't know how deep that plume was. So it took a lot of people to get in the same room and work around the table. And the Air Force did show up with the money at that point and the effort to get to take care of the plume. And as the map was seen, there has been a great reduction in the mass. And I don't think the Water Authority thought at the time when it was doing its conservation and when it was going to implement its actual San Juan Chamana diversion that they thought they'd have an impact with this. But that helped as well. That brought the water table up. And now where the plume sits, I would say this, you can say in the last 2, 3, 4 years, I have never seen the plume more stable. So we know where it is. So I agreed, as the Air Force, we have said it before, they've done a good job with that dissolved phase. There are still other portions of the contamination to deal with. So as Mr. Wortman did, he did an excellent job describing the corrective measures process, and that right now we're in the investigation. We do hope to get to the corrective measures evaluation. As Mr. Wortman mentioned, that there will be an opportunity for the public at that time to weigh in and discuss this. But then we make a selection, and it's the New Mexico Environment Department that's going to choose what corrective measure is put in place. And there is an opportunity for a dispute resolution if that is not what is liked by the permittee or maybe even the public. And then at that point, the final remedies we talked about, that's when we start implementing those and get to a final remedy in place. So what we're seeing now in the current investigation phase, as I just described, the drop municipal use of the Water Authority has risen to the water table, putting the dissolved phase boom in a stable situation, and after much pump and treat and removal of a lot of the contamination mass. However, the source area has not been adequately addressed. Just as the Environment Department took back this site into the RCRA program to enforce it, now this is where we want to do. We want to normalize the situation again, get this back on the RCRA track, which we think the added benefit to the Air Force is that there is more predictability in what we're going to ask, and we can do one item at a time. So although there is a very successful groundwater treatment plant treatment system in place, it does not address the source area. Also, what we want them to continue to look for during this interim is the extent of contamination in the source area. And related is the soil vapor contamination. The soil vapor is where all of these off gases, if you've seen gasoline poured on the ground and watch it evaporate, well, it does the same thing once it gets underneath the surface. It's off gassing. It creates like a groundwater plume, but it makes a vapor plume. So we want them to look at that. We also want them to look at the pathway that the released fuels have gone to. I mean, one of the great things that the collaborative effort did and all of the work together was come up at least with a conceptual model of what the release would look like. They sort of dug into their files and they know the leak, they know what was happening during then, but the conceptual model is good as my description putting on a drawing right now. It's not going to tell you exactly where you need to go and put that remediation system in place so we can deal with for this once and for all. So one of the challenges I see is that in the letters that we have since 2019, we've been trying to get the Air Force to come back into the RCRA, and we seem to have a difference of opinion, and there were approvals that were given back during that time when we were in what we could refer to as sort of an experiment period. We stepped away from formal RCRA interactions, and we took advantage of the flexibility of the interim measures. But now we want them to get back to the table and start dealing with the source area, much like we did when we brought them back to the table and told them, you got to drill all of these wells out in the neighborhood, and we really have to get a hold of what's going on. So at this point, we have actually we've had some back and forth. If you ever find the time and you want to read some boring letters, there's a lot of back and forth between the Environment Department and Kirtland on what exactly is the next step. But we're hoping we can, when we talk about collaborate, we can work in this relationship between the regulator and the permittee. Data gaps, as I think even Mr. Wharton brought up. Free phase fuels, he probably talked about the LNAPL plume. That's where the gas sits as gas, and it's either floating on top of water or it's caught in between rocks, sand, soil, clay in the ground. However, it's still releasing and still dissolving into the groundwater. So we want them to make sure we can find where all these pockets exist. Also, as I mentioned, the migration pathway. It's our feeling at this point that a risk assessment cannot be, a true representation, although we did approve, as we talked about, the groundway phase. Yes, as far as the pathway to drinking water, we believe that's been resolved at this point, as things sit today. But we cannot complete the full sort of risk until investigation is completed and we fully understand what we're looking at, and to make sure that groundwater cleanup standards are met across the entire site. We also have soil vapor sampling and groundwater monitoring. I'm not going to go through all the details. I provided this so you can read it at your time. But our next steps, as I said, we want to get back on the RCRA track with this site. We want to fill the data gaps. We want to complete the investigation activities so a remedy can be selected. There's also been, we feel we're getting pushback from Kirtland Air Force Base regarding the direction we're giving on how they're sampling. They made references to approvals we gave back during the experiment. Yes, there were a lot of smart people sitting around the table, and they all made a decision. How can we do this for cheaper? How can we do it faster because we had a response? At this time, I think we're out of a threat. And now we can get back to the work we did at RCRA. We can start following standard protocols on the sampling that they're doing and the way they collect samples, much like Kirtland does on all the other corrective action sites that we have on base and they do for their regular monitoring. So we're not asking them to do anything out of the ordinary. We're just asking them to sort of handle this the way they do the other sites on the base. So when the data gaps are filled and the data is collected, the investigation phase can be completed, and we can get to we can find a viable remedy through the corrective measures evaluation. That's my formal presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sheen. Any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Barbeau?
Thank you, Chair. I just thank you for the presentation. I haven't met you, and I'd love to maybe follow up and meet folks. I guess thank you for saying that, right, the needed investigation and that's in process. I guess are all parties that need to be participating in the investigation doing so willingly?
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
I guess are all parties participating that need to be a part of this investigation, coming forth and willingly participating in the investigation?
So the Air Force is present. They are at the table. Are you referred to maybe Water Authority staff, other stakeholders?
Yeah, I guess all other stakeholders, but also, I guess specifically Kirtland Air Force Base. When you say there's an investigation happening right now, and we heard we can't really have timelines around what this might look like. You know, I feel like when I came on, there was a lot of conversation about what had happened, and like, it's been 2 years now that I've been on commission, and that same information was presented tonight. So I guess, like, my community, what does the investigation process look like? And
Yes, I mean, are we almost there? I would like at least 2 more years using data, using the analyses and sample protocol that we are requiring actually of the Air Force to use going forward. I'd like to see that data, and 2 years is so we probably get to a point to say, okay, now we know exactly what we're looking for, we can put a remedy in place. It's going to be many years. Even when you get the final remedy in place, it's going to be many years. That's why, thankfully, the Air Force did bring money to the table in 2014-15 to put that remediation system in place so they could address what was the immediate threat. So I think we have some time on their hands using the standard process.
using the standard process, and that's
The
ongoing.
RCRA.
That's ongoing right now, and, okay. Okay, thank you, Chair. I think that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Riel?
Thank you, Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, Rick, if I may call you by your first name, I'm a little bit concerned with your last comment. When you say to this board and the community that's listening, you refer to, we're just not sure what we're looking for or what's there. That gives me a bit of a concern in that because of the length of this process and what's been done, and there's no question there's been some good work done. Are there other issues that you feel that are, or other contaminants or other severity situations with this plume that we should be, if you will, more cognizant about? Or is it just simply your concern that because it's on a federal land, et cetera, that you don't have enough information and you're hedging your bets a bit in terms of what you might find?
Ms. Rell, thank you for pointing that out. What I will say is we have a lot of data on the site. We have a lot of information about the plumes around the groundwater plume. I am less concerned about that dissolved phase plume at this point. I'm not saying forget it. I'm saying we can monitor it right now. We have a good idea. The information we'd want, though, is going to be more specific to the contamination in the source, where all this was leaking in the soil. That's where we really need some good data in order to put something. And that's the Air Force, to their credit, they spent a lot of years doing soil vapor extraction. They were taking care of this plume. So in addition to removing those vapor plumes, they were also moving fuel in a vapor form out of it. So they did get started. However, that system has not been on for quite a while. So it is a concern if they don't turn back to that. We may have some, it may take longer than it's really necessary. But there is a lot of data, so I don't want you to feel concerned that we don't know anything about this. We do. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one more question, a follow-up. So Rick, just for those of us listening and for us as members of this board, tell me what you think the solution looks like and how much longer do you think we'll, assuming all the parties come to the table at least as we've talked about tonight, are we talking 2 or 3 years out, and what does that look like?
Ms. Real, that 2 to 3 year time frame, and they've recommended, and the Air Force does want to work on getting something that we can approve. And I will accept that commitment of theirs. If we can do that and not play this game of sending letters back and forth, I think this is going to get done faster than it is, faster than otherwise, the other alternative.
Mr. Chairman, I would just make a comment to the Colonel and to the Air Force. This is a significant issue for that part of our city of Albuquerque, and I would really make a request on behalf of the mayor and the city administration that if there is a method, a process that we can expedite the communication between NMED and the base to get these issues resolved, it would be in the best interest of all of us as it relates to what we are going to do to remediate this and to ensure that the citizens of that part of the city, and quite frankly, the entire region that relies on this aquifer, that we try and expedite that communication to try and get to a solution. Recognize that there may be difference of opinion between, if you will, the experts on both sides of this issue, but I am sure that we can get to some point in the process where we can get together and really utilize those resources to get this done quicker. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Davis?
Really quick, Rick, good to see you again. Thank you for bringing all that back.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. I remember, I think I had repressed the trauma, but at one point, I was part of that group that went to DC to talk to our delegation and ask for some help to get some more attention and some more resources. And so I disagree a little bit that resources have not always been available, or have always been available. They quite frankly weren't, and that was part of our challenge in previous years. But I understand they are better now, and I'm glad that you're here, Mr. Wortman. Thank you. It's been a refreshing to have you here. But at the end of the day, like, there are disagreements, there are letters flying back and forth, all of those things. But in this RCRA process, at what point, I mean, NMED is ultimately the agency responsible for overseeing or approving these plans. So what are you not getting in terms of there are these data points that are apparently out there that they're saying they don't have access to or don't have in a timely manner? Who's responsible for getting those back? Is that NMED contractors? Is that their contractors? Like, what's the data gap, and who's responsible for getting that back, and who's the referee in determining what data is right or what interpretation is right?
I look taller in vertical stripes, so maybe you could say that NMED is
The referee.
the referee.
We've always used that term for y'all, I think, right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
So we're the referee. And so we're just calling foul, giving a yellow card, saying, hey, come back to the rules and work at it. Because as you mentioned, it's us making the decision at the end of the day, and we are going to have to defend it to the public. If the public brings up, or anyone brings up, that the quality of this data is not good, and you've made decisions based on it. So at the end of the day, it's a state that's going to have to defend that.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate it, and thank you, Mr. Shea. I appreciate that. Yeah, that in the past, that was kind of the problem. Again, I've been gone a year. I don't feel like we've gotten very far in this process, mainly because the plan that NMED was going to review when I left just got denied. So that tells me we didn't get very far. But I do think that it felt like the Air Force at one point was trying to move faster with different staff and different people. I fully acknowledge it. I'm grateful for having some new ones. But it felt like they were trying to move faster just to do a cleanup and just not say they were done, that they had a final action, move to final action when we didn't have good data. And so I hope that this next phase of denying that, sending it back for deficiencies, I hope there's enough specificity in NMED's denial to tell them what we need and where that data can come from, and that there are resources on the ground to fill those gaps where needed. And if there's not, I hope that someone will include us. I know the Water Authority has stepped in previously to provide contractors, to provide resources, to provide data, to help move that process along. And I can't speak for everybody here, but I'm willing to bet that we'd be willing to be a partner in helping with that again. Certainly know the city would if we needed to be, although, careful what you ask for. So please keep us informed. Thank you, Mr. Shea, for doing that. And I know our staff and our teams are with you all around those tables, but we have to get this done. It's been 2 years now where we still don't have the data we need to know we know where the plume is, but we don't know sort of the extent of how we're going to do this. And people still live there. We're still dealing with those issues, and we got to get this done. It's been 25 years now. Yeah, we should have a party or something.
When I first started, I didn't think I'd still be on it. I got to say, I was hoping there was another division I could be a director of, quite honestly.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything further from board members? Commissioner Barboa?
Thank you, Chair. I just, one follow-up question. I think, again, to my point about money and where the budget is, I guess, and I guess NMED being the final decision maker, do you have the authority to set some deadlines around? And
Yes,
have
we
those
do.
been set?
We provide deadlines for, say, the work plans that are coming up. And every time If we provide them with a deadline to get the work plan and they ask for extension, we can offer it. 2 deadlines just recently passed, and we have not formally responded at this point. We're still dealing with general counsel on how we're going to deal with that. So, but yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just I maybe want to see where those, but because I understand there was like Councilor Davis, you know, reminded us of the expense of the both resources, monetary and staff, and development of treatment plants was robust at some point and seems to have plateaued. And I don't know what. Yeah, like, let's keep moving.
Councillor Feeble-Corn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So along those lines, you know, there's deadlines that are coming and going, and then we set a new deadline and it comes and goes. What is the ramification for missing a deadline? What kind of authority does NMED have to actually make something happen here? This has been a quarter of a century, and it just seems like there should be some authority within your purview to really move this along.
We do have options. We do have the regulatory authority to do something. I would like to, you know, our general counsel, you know, to let us know what they think we should do. Because you're right, it's been a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Again, this is really important to the city of Albuquerque and the residents here, and missed deadlines are not something that I think should be tolerated in this situation. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Feeble-Corn. And if I'm not seeing any further discussion on this, I just kind of have one, it's really more of a comment, but echoing what Mr. Real and others have said up here. This is a critical issue for our entire community. It's not just that region of the city that the respective commissioner and councilor represent. It's our regional aquifer, our regional water system that you know, we're very proud of, and we have to maintain and protect that precious water supply. So I think this is a critical issue beyond just this one area, and I also want to acknowledge the importance of the Air Force Base as a critical partner, not just on this issue, but in the economic impact that facility has, and the important impacts that has on our community as a whole. But you know, water is life, and this is a precious key resource that underpins all of those things. Without the water, we don't have the economic impact of that facility. So I hope that, I really appreciate the historical perspective that you're bringing to this, and I hope that you'll continue to be a leader in this, and I hope that we see this partnership grow closer together, as it seems like, you know, right now we're not communicating the same language all the time, and missed deadlines, as Councillor Feeble-Corn said, are just really not acceptable when you're talking about a resource like this that needs protection and an issue that needs to be addressed. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That takes us to our third update here. This is a project update on the bulk fuels facility from Diane Agnew with the Water Authority.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you so much for the opportunity for me to come and provide you the Water Authority's perspective. I know it's making for a long night of presentations, but we all value your support and your interest. I am also going to spend just a hot minute to talk about my background. So Rick and I have a unique long view of this project. We've both been engaged since 2009, 2010, which means that we can see both where we have been and where we are not going, and some of the obstacles and places for opportunity for us to make some progress. With that said, I'm just going to spend like just a short period of time on this slide because they've all talked about, or both Ryan and Rick talked about the history, but this answers one of the questions that you had, Mr. Benavides, about where the leak actually occurred. The picture on the bottom is what the old fuel offloading rack used to look like. So it was this above ground, or this like rack that the train cars would pull up next to, and then the fuel would go down into the ground, into the pipe, and then it would go underground into the tanks and fill up the tanks. And so there was nothing visible of the fueling infrastructure until they showed up to work in 1999, and that's also shown in this picture on the bottom. That's what the site looked like after they found fuel pooled on the ground surface and then removed the soil. So you can see, even in that dated photo, the staining of the soil, and that was just the surface expression. And then these other two photos are of the hole in the pipe. So when they pulled out the pipe to replace the infrastructure, they found the holes. And you can see that they're fairly small. They're about the size of a quarter. But it doesn't take that much of a hole for gallons and, millions of gallons of fuel to come through, just simply how the system works. So a little bit of background on how the infrastructure was set up. I also want to spend a minute on talking about MCL and really putting it into the correct framework. The maximum contaminant level is set by the EPA, and it doesn't represent human health. It represents what the EPA believes is a technical feasible level that they can both measure a contaminant to and treat a contaminant to. The number that the EPA has that actually represents what's safe to consume is their MCL goal. And so whenever the EPA talks about MCL for EDB, they also put the MCL goal, which is 0. That means that the EPA recognizes that the only safe amount of EDB to consume is 0. It's not the MCL. It's an important factor when we're talking about risk and what the site should be cleaned up to and how we should be monitoring the site. I also thought it was funny. We all have our own RCRA arrow. Like, I'm not gonna talk about it. This graphic is there's this fairly standard environmental stakeholder model, and I've just adapted it for bulk fuels because I'd like to talk about why you just heard presentations from Air Force, NMED, and now the Water Authority. So in the center is the problem. What are we all facing? We're facing soil and groundwater that's been impacted by the leaking jet fuel. Who all is involved? Well, you have the Water Authority. We fall into the category of may be adversely affected by decisions. So this is, we have legitimacy in our concern. We have urgency in our concern. We do not have any power to change the outcome for ourselves, but we can be affected by the decisions being made. We can be affected by the delays in the project. We can be affected by the failure to characterize the project. So that's where we sit in this bubble. The Environment Department, they sit in the bubble of being responsible for preventing or minimizing the risk, and they're our state regulators. And they do that through the RCRA permit, as Rick just talked through, the RCRA process, holding the permittee accountable, making sure they're meeting the metrics, delivering data that's reliable and robust. And then the other part of this structure are two really important parts. There's those who created the risk. In this case, it's the U.S. Air Force with the leaking jet fuel. And then there's the contractors. So the Air Force hires contractors to do all the work that they present to you. And those fall into the category of may favorably be affected by the decision. Typically, they have a gain. In this case, contractors get paid to do the work for the Air Force to investigate and implement. I'm just going to also briefly update the Water Authority. We did install a data gap monitoring well. We decided that well was critical. We've been watching this site. We evaluate all of the Air Force's groundwater monitoring data ourselves, and we do our own groundwater modeling. And based on all those inputs, we decided that there was a part of the aquifer that had not been investigated that we were concerned about, as the EDB may be moving towards our supply wells without being measured. And it was worth it to us to go after capital outlay funding. Thanks to our legislators, we received it. We installed the well. It has no EDB, which is great news, because that means that we have a point where we can say reliably we know ethylene dibromide's not moving towards our supply wells. And it also gives us the ability to better constrain the plume. Like we can put that into our conceptual model. This is a cartoon of what the site conceptual model is. And it really, I think, hopefully brings together everything we've talked about in a very 2D view and also with a lot of text in a graphic. So the idea is that where that X is, that's where the fuel offloading rack was. It leaked fuel over time. Some of that fuel stayed in the ground. Some of it is staying as a fuel vapor. Some of it's actually fuel that's stuck in the soil. And some of it moved down to groundwater where it's dissolving and moving towards our supply wells. We don't have complete characterization of the fuel. That's what Rick just talked about, how that's a big data gap. And that's something that they really want the Air Force to characterize, and we completely agree. The Air Force's slide showing the benzene plume where they're touting plume stability actually highlights plume instability, because if you look at the graphic on the left and compare it to the graphic on the right, it gets more dark red. That means higher concentrations. And in fact, if you look at the graphic on the left data and you look at the graphic on the right data, you see some of those data points change by an order of magnitude. So there is fuel in the ground. As the groundwater comes up, it's touching that fuel. That's going into the groundwater. And as long as that's occurring, we have a risk to our groundwater supply. And then that's where we get to the source treatment. So without treating that remaining fuel, you're going to have that loop continue for what we've actually modeled that will continue for over 100 years. So if there's nothing implemented to go after the source, we're talking about over a century of impacts to our groundwater supply, even if that pump, and that's assuming the pump and treat system is running. So if the pump and treat, we just have to keep going for almost 3 generations without any changes. Another slide I'd like to talk about, I know we've brought it up and it goes to the groundwater monitoring discussion. The NMED is requiring the Air Force change their groundwater monitoring program in a way that completely aligns with the recommendations of the technical staff at the city and the Water Authority. And the other thing that we keep talking about is we are urging the Air Force to contour their plume to all detections. What they are showing in their maps is they're showing just the concentrations of ethylene dibromide above the MCL. So again, MCL is not protective of human health, it's just the regulatory cleanup standard. The MCL goal is 0, so contouring all detections really is what we want to look at to be able to understand what the true risk is. Where is EDV and where is it not? The map on the left is what the Water Authority has done with our contractor. This maps all detected ethylene dibromide at the site. Another key difference between the two maps is that we are actually showing what ethylene dibromide looks like right at the water surface. So to go back to my cartoon here, right where the top of that blue line is, that's where we expect ethylene dibromide to be because of how it behaves in water. And so when you contour the measured concentrations at that water table and you do all the detections, you get a plume that looks like this on the left. The Air Force is presenting something remarkably different when they go and present just the MCL, and then they use a reference elevation that's much deeper than the water table, where you would expect to see lower concentrations of ethylene dibromide. And then I should say that both these maps are using Air Force data that isn't in compliance with the NMED groundwater monitoring request. So there is some adjustment that would need to be made getting that data that NMED's requested, getting multiple quarters, and we can look at how the plume is moving and shaping. And when we decided to build a timeline, the Air Force timeline is looking at tasks, and they certainly have done a lot of work out here, and they have spent a lot of money out here. I'm going to put this timeline on the projector. Our timeline focuses on progress, because ultimately what we want to get to is final remedy, and that's the remedy selection. There we go. There it goes. It's remedy selection. That's really where we want to go. The Water Authority wants to get to final remedy as much as anybody else. That's when we know we can start having confidence that our water is getting cleaned up and there'll be reduced risk to our water supply. So that's why we have site characterization. That's the big RCRA milestone that the Air Force needs to clear. As Rick said, they have to complete that investigation so they can move into the corrective measures evaluation. That is incomplete. And what we'd like to highlight here is that they are currently working and continuing to collect data under a work plan that's been disapproved by the Environment Department. Since 2020, the state has issued 10 notices of disapproval. The Air Force has responded with issuing 16 extension requests. None of these extension requests argue the technical merits of what they're doing. Instead, it is a lot of letter movement, which we saw when we were on the site in 2009 and 2010, similar to what Councilor Davis was referencing when there was a need to start meeting with the delegation and getting increased political pressure. We also like to highlight this timeline really does illustrate what was referenced with the technical working groups. So a lot of effort was made by this board and by our local elected officials, the city, to go and get funding for the project. You see that spike in funding in 2014. That coincides very neatly with when the groundwater treatment system was put into place. That was the effort of a collaborative approach with technical working groups that involved the City of Albuquerque, Water Authority, and the Environment Department and the Air Force. Those technical working groups, they did not happen after 2018. We had our first technical working group in 2021, actually. And there was supposed to be a follow-up technical working group. That has never happened. We've requested it. The Environment Department is amenable to having a technical working group if they can get the Air Force to come and meet. The Air Force is so far not willing to come to those technical working groups, but we feel that you can see the combined technical working group collaborative approach with funding is where you saw a lot of progress at the site. And we'd like to, that's where we think there's a need for increased push to see that progress move forward again at a timeline that is appropriate. I'd also like to highlight it ties back to that cartoon graphic again, there's source area cleanup. There's no source area cleanup happening now, but there used to be source area cleanup, and Rick mentioned it in his presentation. The Air Force was running a soil vapor extraction system that was very effective. It was pulling fuel out of the ground, it was consuming it, and they removed tons of fuel from the ground, and that system was shut down in 2015 and actually has since been decommissioned, though it was proven to be a very effective way to treat fuel in the soil. So there are technologies that we know work out here that we could revisit and we could apply to get after that source so that we could reduce the risk to groundwater and also make rapid progress towards cleaning up the site. So moving forward, really, there's 3 main areas to focus on. I have many more here, but ultimately, active remediation of the source area is really critical. Until that happens, we will have continued risk to the groundwater source. That funding allocation is also key, making sure that the Air Force is requesting sufficient funds to be making aggressive progress at the site, that they're coming into compliance with the NMED, and along those lines, continuing to support the Environment Department in their efforts to do oversight at the BFF project site. And again, that's really how this happens is through the engagement of the public, through the elected officials in this board. This board has been instrumental, hugely supportive, and we'd like to encourage and support that in any way that we can. And so with that, I will stand for questions.
Questions for Ms. Agnew? Seeing none, I really want to thank you for coming before us and letting us hear your update here. I think that really tied things very nicely together for us. And I just kind of have one question on this. I mean, what I'm hearing is if that source, that point source is not remediated, we're going to continue to see those fuels, whether it's EDB or benzene, any other of those components of the fuel, leach into the aquifer, into the water table, and continue to migrate out into the community if that point source is not addressed. And so currently that is not being done.
That's exactly right. And it's worth highlighting, there's a couple of things in here that make this site unique in the need for that treatment is if we had a static water table and it wasn't rising, you could maybe get closer to the quote-unquote plume stability, but that is not the case. This water table is rising because of our groundwater management practices. And so these little red ovals in this cartoon, those are pools of fuel still in the soil. So as that water table comes up, it comes into contact with the fuel reservoir in the pores and just dissolves and increases concentrations. So it's a dynamic system that will continue to be dynamic until we get some treatment in the soil.
And one other point I wanted to clarify as well. On the threshold levels that are being measured that make those differences in those 2 maps, to be clear, the Water Authority's perspective is that there is no safe level of EDB for human consumption. And that is what your map reflects, is where is there any detectable level of this contaminant versus the Air Force map, which is showing only the threshold at any point where it's above the threshold of dangerous contact, essentially. And you also made that distinction about the level at which it's being measured, also causing some of that discrepancies. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, that's correct. So you've got it exactly right. And while it is, so the MCL is what the Environment Department can currently force the Air Force to clean up the aquifer to. The approach should, in our opinion, really be that the plume should never go past where it is right now because any migration is going to be above 0, and that's not safe. We need to be reducing this down. We would actually like to see cleanup to 0. That is truly safe. That is when this would become an available resource to us. As long as there's ethylene dibromide, this is not available for us to use. To say there's no risk to groundwater or no risk to drinking water supply wells is not entirely, what that statement means in a true risk perspective, what that is that there's no supply well in this plume right now. That doesn't mean there's no risk. Right? And I think that's what we're trying to highlight with our plume.
Mr. Real? No. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, thank you so much for coming up here and filling us in on this. So our last item on this topic here, we have an update
Oh.
from,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce Mr. John Fleck. He is with our Technical Advisory Committee, and I failed to introduce him entirely. I apologize.
That's okay.
He's here to present on the TCAC letter.
That's okay. I don't have a lot to add, and so I won't take much of your time. My name's John Fleck. I'm a faculty member at the University of New Mexico, work on water policy and the Water Resources Program, staff of the Etten Center doing natural resource water work, and was part of the Technical Advisory Committee group. We, advise, we view our role as helping advise the Water Authority on issues such as this. We are significantly concerned about what we have seen, but my history with this project actually goes back a lot farther. I spent a lot of time sitting in the back as a newspaper reporter and writing about this. I think, interestingly, Diane and Rick and I all go back to the beginning. And the concern I have when I returned to this issue in my role at the Technical Customer Advisory Committee is that we're kind of the same place we were when I stopped writing about this many years ago in the newspaper. Diane did a nice job of explaining the complicated regulatory dance that is underway here. We have a state regulator, we have a regulated permittee, and then we have the Water Utility Authority off on the side as the party most potentially harmed by all this. And when I say the water utility, I really mean your constituents. As a sort of academic water policy wonk, this would be like a super fascinating question, but that's my water supply in my community, so I'm emotionally attached to it in a way beyond the mere academic nature of it. But there's really an important point, and I think Rick made this point with exchange with Councilor Davis, that one of the really important things that I saw back when I was covering this as a newspaper reporter for the Albuquerque Journal, and that we have seen in the years since, is that, in fact, though you don't have regulatory authority, your political capital as community leaders, as the elected officials charged with the responsibility both sitting on this board, but also representing the city and county residents, the investment of political capital on your part to provide the necessary pressure on the dancing parties, and we've heard a lot of discussion about how the dance is going right now. I'll point to 10 notices of disapproval and 16 time extensions. Gives me a sense of where I think the problem is now, but we have seen that active involvement by elected officials in this community as leaders and representatives of the community has helped make progress. And so I guess that's, as a Technical Customer Advisory Committee, our ask of you. We got a great technical staff, but your investment of some of your political capital to put the pressure on the necessary places, and it may need to be the Air Force now, there may be times when it needs to be the state regulators, is crucial to getting this problem solved. So I won't take any more time. We've been here a while, thanks. And I don't know, any questions maybe? Thanks.
thank you, Mr. Fleck. Any questions from any of the board members? Really appreciate everyone tonight on this issue, and I just want to say thank you to everyone that participated in this, from the Environment Department, Colonel Vidioli and Mr. Wortman, and of course our own Water Authority staff and our Technical Advisory Board. This is an issue that's obviously ongoing and really has gone on too long, and we're not at the end yet, unfortunately. But I really hope that this can serve as a wake-up call to everybody in the room that this is the time to really come together and act and work together. And if that means some of us up here putting pressure on other elected leaders or working with regulators or whatever we need to do, I think this is a really critical issue for our entire community, and appreciate the buy-in from all parties here. And I really do want to, again, thank the Air Force for being here, along with our Environment Department and all of the staff. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to let you know that our first presenter is here, if you want to still do that.
Thank you so much. So we will return to our first, but now our last presentation here. on STEM in the Burke Career Pathway. We have Eamon Huerta here, the Director of Project Management from Explora, to tell us about this exciting project.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This is my first time in this building, and my apologies for arriving late. I live in Santa Fe, so I rely on Google Maps sometimes, and my Google Map took me to Vincent Griego Child Care Center on Alameda Street, so my apologies. But thank you so much for having me, and I'm very excited to give you an overview of this project and exhibition called STEM in the Burke. So what is STEM in the Burke? It is an immersive exhibition with many components housed in this brand new extension building that we just finished at Explora called X Studio. And really, it's a co-creation project that we have been calling with the community, local teens, Water Utility Authority, and other local STEM employers and educators. There are three goals. One, to increase awareness of STEM activities that's happening in Albuquerque and extended New Mexico communities. Number two, to empower teens and also their families to think about solutions to world's big problems. And number three, to encourage and really develop Albuquerque youth and New Mexico youth to be future STEM leaders. This exhibition, STEM in the Burke, has several components. Biggest component would be, I would say, the exhibits. As many of you may know, Explora is known for the hands-on activities and different types of activities and exhibits. We have 14 brand new exhibits, 7 of which, and I should actually say 9 of which we developed in collaboration with Water Authority. And I see several faces here who have been part of this great project. So those 9 activities, exhibit activities, are based on different ideas and focuses of the water resource management. And exhibition itself has other components, teen lounge, classrooms, makerspace, and other types of facilities and mentor corners to meet with different STEM professionals. Now, how did this STEM in the Burke develop? So we have to go back several years, almost 10 years ago. The initiation of sort of concept for STEM in the Burke really started with the community listening sessions. Over the years, we held about, I would say 25 plus, probably more than 30 altogether community sessions, really asking the community what the aspirations are and what they would like to see in the community. And with that, out of it, we came up with this concept of creating a space and exhibition for teens. Because teens, historically and generally speaking, are somewhat underserved and a little bit overlooked in the museum world. So we also felt, listening to the community, decided that it was important to create a physical space and also exhibition that are dedicated to really elevating and providing opportunities for the teens. So about 3 years ago, we also had more listening sessions and conversations with the several teens about what they would like to see and what they want to see. And after that, we decided to put this grant into writing, and we got the grant from a federal institution called the IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Services. And there we were. We started the project. And throughout the project, some of the key elements of this project were really active participation by the community, namely teens, partners like the Water Utility Authority, several subject matter experts, and educators and other people, other museum also, throughout New Mexico and also other states. Challenge and also delight was the continually we made an effort to really keep the buy-in from everybody involved And especially in this case, this project got so prolonged because of COVID, also construction delays of the new center. It was a challenge, but also a great challenge to really keep the interest of the all parties involved. We also, this was by far the largest exhibition project Explorer took on in our history. So we utilized a lot of resources, not just internally, but also, again, community partners and different vendors and contractors. So it became a really community effort. So it's a culmination of different components of our community, teens, employers, and educators, and different businesses. Now, how did this start? We go back about 3 years. It's hard to believe 3 years, but we kicked off with a small meeting with people from Water Authority. And we had this fun activity called Design Charrettes. Again, several faces I see here were part of this Design Charrette. We do this in Museum World. We gather people together, and we play with different materials to create what we want to see for exhibit. In those sessions, we came up with 3 themes for this exhibit, especially particularly this 9 exhibit set themed around the water resource management, water resources and distribution, water treatment, and conservation and stewardship. Conservation, when we say conservation here, is not just conservation of water, but also conservation of wildlife through water resource management. And 7 focus areas we came up with as well: aquifer storage and recovery, reuse, watershed protection, water storage, groundwater and surface water protection, water treatment and distribution, and wastewater collection and treatment. And key narrative that we wanted to convey through these 9 exhibits was everyone has a role to play in the work of Albuquerque Water Utility Authority and New Mexico's water treatment and water resource management. And the key question is, what is your role? Now, I'd like to just briefly go over those 9 exhibit experiences. First one is it's sort of a centerpiece of the exhibit set. And I really encourage all of you to, if you haven't been to Explorer recently, please come in and check it out yourself. The centerpiece of this exhibit set is called the Water 2120 game. It's really based on the Water 2120 plan. We worked with a local company called Electric Playhouse to create this game to simulate sort of a time travel scenario that you can play. And you can play with different water resources and sources, really, to see how you can come up with a really sustainable water plan for the future. Now, second one is the water resource distribution. This is really more of an engineering problem-solving game. It simulates the water source sort of route from Rio Chama to watershed, and you use different water resources available to come up with an amount of water needed for the day. So the exhibit generates the requirement for the day randomly, and you play with the different allocation of water, and it simulates the water movement through different water sources. WaterBot. This one has 4 different activities. One is a simulation of flocculation. Another one is a filtration. We have microscope to look at the microorganisms in a wastewater. And then a Pac-Man-like game to simulate how bacteria helps treat the water, clean the water. Another piece is a conservation. This is a pretty simple game. Rick was really instrumental in creating this game. It really simulates the water, really simply visually represent the use of water, depending on what kind of the daily activities at home. And you have a choice of high efficiency option versus normal option. And it really simply represents how much water you could save using different options. We have also aquifer model. This is a model of aquifer in groundwater You can use a fluid dye to really see how the water seeps into the ground and how it gets stored. And also that represents if contamination happens, then how it gets into the aquifer system. And we have Refugium. This is more of a passive exhibit. It's not necessarily hands-on, but we also wanted to represent model of aquifer Refugium to see water resource management also really helps protect wildlife. We also have showcase of Water Authority staff. Diane is one of them. And yeah. And we have those posters or panels throughout the building highlighting STEM professionals, in this case, of course, in the Water Utility Authority staff. And not just scientists, but also people who help science happen, who help make those things happen, we are highlighting. And these are 3 of the 15 panels we have in the building. So what's next? This has been very much a learning experience for us and for the community as well. And Explora, we are all learning how these exhibits work and also how programming will work. And we are evaluating right now, and we're learning a lot. Things are breaking down, but we are coming up with solutions to keep it going. And we will also do periodic evaluations of the not just physical exhibits, but also how programming activities will work in this building. And we also will continue to maintain and improve exhibits and equipment. And Water Authority really generously is helping us in terms of both funding and also subject matter expertise to keep that going. Several ideas have been exchanged between us and Water Authority. Some of them, as you see here in this presentation, we are really hoping to meet a scientist or meet a professional type of activities involving teens and inviting people like Rick and Diane, Liz and Mark here to talk to the teens and interact and talk about water resource management and conservation. We are also thinking of some kind of a field trip also organized by Water Authority and work with our interns as well to facilitate that kind of activity, inviting families and teens, other youth. So yes, we are very, very excited. And it's really, this STEM in the Burke and X-Studio combined, it's really a promise to teens and their families, and especially teens of low-income background and also teens of color and their families, that every single youth, every kid has an opportunity to choose their future. And we are promising them, we are promising the community, working with community partner like Water Authority to do our best to make that happen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Really
Any
appreciate
questions?
your report. Any questions or comments from board members? Mr. Trustee Benavides?
The Explorer is a wonderful asset for the city, and there's many different age-appropriate activities going on. How do we get more teens to visit Explorer? And I think maybe you were touching on that with your last slide. Do you have thoughts about how we do that?
Well, thank you for the question. And the STEM in the Burke, because we knew the target audience for this particular exhibition, teens. Teens are a very tough crowd. So as you can see, the color scheme you see in this presentation is also the color scheme for the exhibition itself in the building. We wanted to make ourselves a little bit more relevant to the teens, meaning be cool. So it's a challenge, but also we have teen interns now, about 45 to 50 teen interns already. So through that, we are really counting on word of mouth as well, and they talk to their peers, social media or whatnot. And also we reach out to schools and different teen groups We work with the city youth council. We also have a youth advisory group, teen advisory group, and we engage those people. And we tell them to talk to the teens. We ask them to talk to their families. And also, we try to stay relevant, meaning we try to stay cool and more interesting to the teens. That's just some of the examples. And we also host, as you may be aware, we have teen nights. We invite just teens to take over the museum and have some fun activities that are related to STEAM subject areas. So those are some of the examples that we try to court, lure teens into the building and engage in STEAM activities.
I used to do hands-on science for Los Ranchos Elementary School, and taking science-type activities to the schools was a big hit. Of course, we're talking about elementary schools. I mean, but what I'm thinking about, do you reach out to the schools? Will you go out there
Yes.
with some hands-on activities?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Explora reaches pretty much every corner of the state, and actually beyond. We reach the southern Colorado also. We have relationship with virtually every library in the state as well. So several things. We have numerous number of activity kits that we send out to the communities, school districts, libraries. We also, again, outreach activities involve physically bringing mini Explora to different schools, different districts, different communities. So we bring Explora to those communities as well. And I mean, literally, our education team logs thousands of miles every single year. And I would say about probably 20,000, actually more than that, several tens of thousands students we reach, both at Explora and away from Explora.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Anything further from the board?
Thank you.
I overheard some chatter here from Councilor Jones about a field trip. I think it's a great idea for all of us. I think there's a lot for us to learn. It's a great facility, an exciting partnership.
Yes.
Really exciting partnership. Thank you, Mr. Horta, for being here and doing what you're doing for our entire state and our STEM career pathway. That concludes item number 10, other business, and that'll take us back into our regular order of business. Item number 7, introduction, first reading of legislation. Item A, R23-6, establishing one-year objectives for the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority in fiscal year 2024 to meet 5-year goals. We have Ms. Elizabeth Anderson here to present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I'm here for introduction, like you said, for the goals and objectives. I'll try and get through this quickly today. I know we've had a really long agenda, but this is an exciting topic. We do this every year. It's part of our strategic planning process. We have our 5-year goals and 1-year objectives. So at the very top of this strategic planning process, you'll see those objectives. That's what we'll go through tonight. But it's just the very beginning of this process. The next step is the performance plan, which you'll also be hearing more about later in coming board meetings. We do an American Waterworks Association utility benchmarking every year to see how we stand with respect to statistics, that are collected by other utilities of similar size. And then the effective utility management, we do quarterly meetings and go through all of these objectives with our staff from across the utility to discuss how we're doing in these different areas that we're targeting improving. We do our annual budget. These goals and objectives will get rolled into the annual budget if there's any additional funding needs in order to accomplish them. Then here on the left-hand side of this graphic, you can see more of the qualitative metrics that we're collecting feedback through a customer opinion survey from our customers. We meet monthly with our technical customer advisory committee. John Fleck, who is here presenting to you tonight, one of the members of that committee. We do customer conversations throughout our service area, and we also do employee expectations, which is the performance expectations for all of our staff members, which these objectives actually get rolled out through. So that's one way that we're able to collect that, let people know how they're contributing towards this overall strategic planning process. We have 5-year goal statements, and all of our objectives roll up underneath these goal statements. This is a program that was implemented by the EPA in conjunction with a bunch of different national water agencies, including NACWA and the American Water Works Association. So these 5 goal area statements, they don't change year by year. The objectives within them do change year by year. So we have goal statements for customer service, business planning and management, organizational development, water supply and operations, and then wastewater collection and operations. Something I also wanted to highlight here is that we implement these objectives as a measure for improving our systems. These aren't policies. These are objectives that they're kind of stretch goals, I think is what you could say. We're always trying to seek ways to improve what we're doing. The performance measures by each goal area, these provide more data-based performance measures that we can look back to in each of these areas. And so this is part of our, these objectives are part of the effective utility management process that we use throughout the utility, where we actually go back and every other year we look at how we're doing with respect to different areas within the organization, and we try to find ways to improve in each of those areas. So we have strategic planning sessions with each of our business sections and identify measures that can be taken to help us get to that next level. And a lot of those do come through as objectives. So there's a number of those that are included this year. I wanted to highlight just a few. Like I said, I'm going to try to do this fast because I know it's been a long agenda tonight. But some of the key areas that we're working on in Goal Area 1, we provide leadership for the Middle Rio Grande Endangered Species Collaborative Program. Mark Kelly is the non-federal co-chair for that committee, and we worked with them on a lot of adaptive management practices for the Middle Rio Grande endangered species. We also are members of the Partnership for Safe Water and constantly seeking to improve how we're treating and distributing water throughout our systems. We have some objectives that are looking at arsenic treatment to improve resiliency of our groundwater systems, because in times of drought you do have to lean back on those groundwater systems, unfortunately. And then a lot of areas where we're focusing on xeriscape conversions, water conservation measures, targeting some of our high-use water customers. There's objectives in here for helping low-income customers participate in those programs and really find ways to conserve within their systems. And then our leak detection programs, and constantly seeking to reduce that non-revenue water loss and save water throughout our system, which is an area we actually really excel at. The goal area 2, we've got wastewater collections and operations. We have a target of 30% of our waste from the wastewater treatment plant going out and becoming compost, and then that gets taken out throughout Bernalillo County, really, and used by a number of users. We also have objectives for collaborating with partner agencies, in particular the Office of the Natural Resources Trustee, and the work that we're doing for the SWRP Habitat Project right now at the Outfall, which is a good collaboration with the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District and the Interstate Stream Commission, Bureau of Reclamation, and of course ONRT. Our customer services goals, we've converted about 70%, over 70% of our system to the AMI, the automated meter infrastructure, which has been an excellent way for us to find more conservation that we can do throughout our system, and provide, more accuracy of billing for customers. So we're continuing to roll out that AMI with the goal of getting 100% of our system on AMI. We have customer service metrics that we've been adding. We've been really targeting call quality with customers, and that's been an area where we've seen some improvements, so we've actually increased our goal for that one. And of course, we're going to be doing customer conversations again this year. For goal 4, business planning and management, we're working hard to work with the funding that Bernalillo County provided through the ARPA program. Thank you to all of our commissioners in Bernalillo County. There's been some excellent projects that are going through, including the Tahajali pipeline and a number of other really important projects in our system. Our rehabilitation and renewal programs, we're doing a lot of infrastructure repair right now and rehab, which is critical for our wastewater systems. we have goals of providing at least 25% of the power to our wastewater treatment plant through renewable sources, primarily solar, and then our biogas through cogeneration. So a lot of work being done there and plans to increase solar throughout our system as well. And then finally, our organizational development area, Goal 5, we are working on mentoring programs and some more, health-based programs, stretching and mental health for staff, offering lots of training opportunities, and reducing our vacancy rate. Our goal is to keep it below 7%. We do a very good job of maintaining that. So that is all I have. I did want to say that we reviewed our objectives with the Technical Customer Advisory Committee. They were very enthusiastic about them, had lots of great questions and comments, and they were supportive of these objectives as well. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions from board members tonight? Yes, Mr. Rail.
I just want to ask one question. As I was looking through the goals and objectives, is there a specific goal and objective to the issue that we talked about this evening with, as it relates to the plume that is directly, I would say that we're sending the message that we're going to focus on that particular goal?
Focusing on that.
As I read through all of them, some general comments about water quality and efficiency, I didn't see anything specifically to that. And then the other question I just do have, if this is a document that is available to the public, it's fairly technical, and it might require something as it's published to the community to, to quite frankly explain some of these acronyms that are embedded in the entire program, because even as much as I've been around, some of these acronyms are pretty hard to figure out what they actually mean. So maybe as an idea of maybe including some kind of a opportunity so that folks that aren't as technical as you all in the system that might be able to understand what some of these goals actually mean. But that's just a commentary.
Thank you. Yeah, we all love our acronyms, huh? My favorite acronym is the TLA, the 3-letter acronym. An acronym for acronyms. So we do have objectives for Kirtland. We have monitoring, goals to continue monitoring and seeking funding for monitoring for the well out of the Kirtland Bulk Fuels facility. And we also have our Rivers and Aquifers Protection Plan and goals specific to that, or objectives specific to that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, to interrupt. What number of objective is that one that you were?
1.23 is the objective for the Kirtland Bulk Fuels. And then 1.20 is the RAP, the Rivers and Aquifers Protection Plan. So both of those really focus in on our groundwater protection. And I appreciate your comment about the acronyms. We always try our best to define as many of those as possible, but there's certainly times when they sneak through.
Anything else? Seeing no further discussion here, this is our first opportunity to take a look at this, to be clear, so this will come through here again in a month, if I'm not mistaken. So we have some time to chew on this. If there's further questions, we have that opportunity. So thank you so much, Ms. Anderson. That takes us to item B, R23-7, authorizing agreement for water and sewer service for MX at petroglyphs. This is also a first reading of legislation. We have Christopher Cadena to present.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Christopher Cadena. I manage the utility development section here at the Water Authority. And this is an introduction for a development agreement for a proposed development located on the west side of Albuquerque. It's here in the northeast corner of Kimmick and Rosa Parks. It's a proposed 28-unit townhome development. And for service, the developer is required to install public water and sewer for the development by extending existing infrastructure in the area. The developer will be required to pay utility expansion charges and water resource charges as a contingency for service. I stand for any questions.
Any discussion or questions from board members? Seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Cadena. That concludes our introduction section. Item 8, our consent agenda. We have no items on the consent agenda tonight. Taking us to item 9, approvals. Our first item here, A, R23-3, adopting a utility franchise agreement with the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, New Mexico we have Mr. Charles Colberg to present. Mr. Corporal.
Thank you. As you know from our last meeting, this is a proposed franchise agreement with the Village of Los Ranchos, the purpose of which is to allow us to locate pipes in the right-of-ways in Los Ranchos. In exchange for the right to do that, we collect from the ratepayers in Los Ranchos a franchise fee, which is then immediately passed through to the village. So it's up for approval. I stand for any questions. Well, no, I'm not standing, but I will accept questions.
It's all right, we'll allow. Thank you, Mr. Colberg. Any questions from board members here? Seeing none, do I have a motion on this item? A motion from Councilor Davis, a second from Councilor Feeblecorn. Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Item's adopted unanimously. Item B, R23-4, an amendment to the approved operating capital and implementation program of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Stan Allred to present.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is for approval. It's our mid-year cleanup for our operating and capital budgets. We have a change for Fund 41. That's a new fund that was created in the last budget cycle for the San Juan Chama Project Contractors Association, approved by this board. We just would like to recognize an additional $26.7 thousand of revenue and then appropriate additional amounts to be spent in that fund, and that is a capital improvement fund. We have change for Fund 29, which is a CIP fund. It's our growth fund. We had received some monies from Bernalillo County. Thank you very much. We want to recognize that revenue and apply $796,000 worth appropriation to projects out of that fund. We have Fund 27, which is another CIP fund. It is our Water 2120 fund. We want to recognize water rights, lease water, and water resource charge in an amount of $858,000 and apply that revenue to appropriate work to be done in the Water 2120 arena. Fund 21, we were short $1.5 million for power and chemicals. So it's to add the appropriation of $1.5 million to those line items in the budget. There's also a amendment to this budget of an additional $1.5 million to bring that amount to $3 million. In January and February, we incurred about $850,000 each month in increased gas bills due to the increase in gas prices. So to make the budget whole, we're asking to increase the appropriation for for electric and gas by $3 million. Staff recommends approval, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Allred. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to move this resolution. Do I have a second? A second from Councilor Feeblecorn. And then I have an amendment to make on this. I'd like to offer an amendment on page 1, line 15, to read General Fund 21, Fund Balance, $3 million, and line 16, General Fund 21, Expense, to read $3 million. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second? Second from Councilor Feeblecorn. Any questions on this amendment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And that takes us back to the original motion. Any further questions on the motion as amended? Seeing none, all in favor of adoption, please say aye. Aye. Seeing no opposed, it was already said. Seeing no opposed, the motion is adopted as amended. Takes us to item C, R23-5, authorizing the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority to submit a congressionally directed spending grant request to the 118th Congress of the United States. We have Marta Ortiz to present. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and respective board members. Before you this evening is a resolution authorizing the Water Authority to apply for grant funds through the 118th Congressional District. Of that, we will be submitting applications to our 3 New Mexico representatives. The first one is Senator Martin Heidenreich. Will be sending 2 applications, one for the Thomas Wells arsenic treatment plant, and the second one is for Carnuel wastewater system infrastructure. To Senator Ben Lujan, we are sending an application for our South and North Phase 1 pipeline project. And the last one will be application to Representative Melanie Stansberry for our aquifer storage and recovery project. These projects are consistent with our state and federal priorities. And I stand for any questions that you may have pertaining to this.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Rail.
So, as we look at these priorities, I was going to ask this question earlier, but I'll ask you now. Are we going to make a request for any funding as it relates to the Kirtland Plume on behalf of resolving that issue? We've talked about the fact that we've intervened before as a board and as a water authority. Is that going to come back in a different resolution, or are we not asking for that at this point?
Mark, you want?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Rael, that was part of our federal priorities request, so that stands. These are just directed appropriation requests to the delegation.
Mr. Chairman, and thanks, Mr. Sanchez. So, since we haven't had a face-to-face meeting in some time, and I missed the last one, Mr. Sanchez, can you, when you get a chance, maybe give me a copy of what you all asked for? We'd obviously like the city of Albuquerque to support that request. I'm sure the county and others will want to do that as well. So, thank you very much.
Any further questions? I just want to recognize how important several of these projects are to the community. The Carnuel Water Project is in my district, an incredibly important project for an underserved community, a historic land grant community there with a very shallow aquifer dependent on private wells and septic tanks that really have that area on the New Mexico Environment Department's list of sites in need of remediation, and this is an important project to move that community in that direction and give them a reliable source of water. And the north-south reuse line is also a really important project for really the entire east side of Albuquerque. So, we're talking about serving golf courses, parks, all kinds of recreation facilities and other reuse water facilities on that side. So it's a really important project for moving in the direction of, as we talk about, one water approach, that type of thing. Reuse water is critical to that. So I hope that we're successful with this request, and I hope that our Congress members really help support this and allow us to make this a reality for our community. So thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Councilor Davis.
Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this. I just want to ask, I realize that our 2 senators and, of course, our CD1 representative always kind of cover the bases for us here in the Albuquerque region. But now with redistricting, we also have Representative Gabe Vasquez, who represents, I think, all of the west side and a good chunk of the South Valley. Is there a reason we chose not to engage the representative in that new district in this process, or are there projects that just didn't make the list this time in that regard?
Mr. Chair, Councilor Davis, we actually received communication from each delegation member soliciting funding requests. We did not receive one from Congressman Vasquez.
We can fix that.
That would be great.
Let's
be
follow up,
happy to
Mr.
submit
Sanchez. We know how to find those folks, and I'm sure if they can help us find some money, they would be more than happy to help. I'm sure our commissioner that helps us represent that neighborhood would know who to call. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. Councilor Fiebelkorn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, in addition to, of course, supporting this resolution, I was just wondering if there was other actions that you need as support for these, letters of support from the city, the county, any other help that we can provide, just let us know.
Yeah, we've requested those from the respective delegates. I believe we've received all those already. So, but if we need additional ones, we certainly will reach out.
Great, thank you.
With that being said, if there's no further questions, I'd make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing these requests. A second from Commissioner Barboa. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. No opposed. The motion carries unanimously. Item D, C-23-4 FY 2023 second quarter performance indicator report from Ms. Anderson again.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so this is our FY 23 second quarter performance indicator report, just with an action of recommend receipt as noted. This is something that we issue every quarter based on the data that we've gathered throughout the utility from the previous quarter. And we've developed these different metrics to look at as performance indicators that are based on benchmarks that we get from the American Water Works Association survey that we participate in, so that we can see how we're doing with respect to how other places are doing things. And this just gives us some data to look at that we can present to you as a way to look across the utility at how things are doing in various areas throughout our service. So what we're presenting to you today is a very good report card. 18 of 22 of these metrics are on target. 4 of them are work in progress or below target. So those are areas that we're still working to hit that target. But in general, everything is looking very good. And you can expect to see these every quarter. So I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, I make a motion to a motion of receipt be noted on this item.
Okay, thank you.
A second from Councilor Jones. Did you have a question, Commissioner? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. No opposed. The item carries. Takes us to item EC 23-5, approving an increase to the price agreement cap with Cannon Cochran Management Services, Inc. for third-party claim services. Andres Santiago to present.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Andres Santiago. I'm the risk manager for the Water Authority. We are seeking your approval to increase the price cap with CCMSI. This is our third-party administrator that handles our general liability claims, workers' comp claims. So this contract was originally awarded for 4 years. We're going to exceed that $500,000 value, and we're going to be extending the contract for another 2 years with their services. So seeking your approval. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Santiago. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, do I hear a motion on this item?
Thank you.
Motion from Commissioner Barboa, second from Councilor Feeblecorn. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And that takes us to item F, C-23-6, approval of power purchase agreement with Nexamp Solar LLC as a result of, and I won't read the number here, Nan Winter to present.
How are you?
Doing well. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Councilors, Trustee, Mr. CAO, my name is Nan Winter. I am outside General Counsel, sorry, Charles, to the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority. This is the second time you have seen this matter. It's come to the board in 2022. This is a resolicitation of a 2022 RFP for covered parking, solar facilities, and a smart flower device to serve the raw water pump station. It is located adjacent to the Bequequi Park. The original award did not result in a contract, and with the recommended 2022 vendor. That vendor disputed Water Authority contractual provisions, and ultimately there was no contract. We rebid. And this project now would result in an additional megawatt to the Water Authority's already about 10 megawatts of solar utilization. This project will offset approximately 30% of the electrical usage at the raw water pump station. It will also save the Water Utility Authority about $4.475 million over the course of the next 40 years. In addition, it saved an additional $1.3 million over the 2022 procurement. So the decision to rebid was a good one. Approval of this item will delegate signature authority to Mr. Sanchez, and I will be putting the final touches on the PPA, the purchase power agreement.
Any questions for Ms. Winter? Sounds like a great project, and to be clear, this is at the surface water pumping plant?
The raw water pump station, Mr. Chair, what we're planning on installing down there is some solar, some covered parking and a smart flower device, and it will offset just raw water pump station. So that's about Alameda and Rio Grande.
Understood, thank you. I make a motion to adopt this for approval. A second from Councillor Feeblecorn. Any further discussion here? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
And the motion carries unanimously. I believe that concludes our business for this evening, and I will call this meeting adjourned.